A routine blood test before knee surgery. That's all it was supposed to be. But when Dr. Patel called me back into his office with that look on his face, I knew something was wrong. What I didn't know was that one phone call would unravel 38 years of lies, expose my own brother as the man who'd been sleeping with my wife, and reveal that my son had been spying on me from inside my own company. My name is William Dawson. Most people call me Bill. I'm 63 years old, and for the past 31 years, I've owned and operated Dawson Construction out of Nashville, Tennessee. 45 employees, $3.1 million in annual revenue. We build custom homes, commercial renovations, the kind of work where you pour a foundation and trust it'll hold for 100 years. I built my company the same way I built my marriage. Slow, steady, honest, or so I thought. I'd been married to Patricia for 38 years. Trish. We met at a Vanderbilt football game in 1985. She was 23, wearing a gold sundress that caught the October light. I was 25, fresh out of trade school, working 12-hour days, pouring concrete for someone else's company. She laughed at my jokes. I fell hard. We married 7 months later at West End Baptist Church with 40 guests and a cake her mother made. We had 2 children. Megan, 30, a 4th grade teacher at Lockland Elementary in East Nashville, and Tyler, 26, who'd been working at Dawson Construction for 4 years in project management. My brother Kevin, 5 years younger, had served as our company's chief financial officer for 20 years. Family business, family trust, family everything. October 10th, 2024. A Thursday. Nashville was deep into fall. The maples along Shelby Avenue burning orange and red. I drove to Vanderbilt University Medical Center for a pre-surgical physical. My right knee had been grinding for 2 years, bone on bone, and Dr. Patel wanted fresh blood work before scheduling the replacement. The appointment was supposed to take 40 minutes. I was back in my truck by 9:15, planning to stop at Dawson Construction to check on the 12th Avenue project before lunch. Simple morning, normal life. Dr. Patel's office called at 2:47 that afternoon. I was standing on a job site in Germantown, watching my crew frame a second-story addition. My foreman, Danny Reeves, was arguing with a plumber about pipe placement. Normal chaos. Then my phone buzzed. "Mr. Dawson, this is Rachel from Dr. Patel's office. The doctor needs you to come back in. There's something in your blood work he'd like to discuss in person." I asked if it was urgent. She paused just long enough to tell me it was. I made it back to Vanderbilt by 3:30. Dr. Patel didn't keep me waiting. He led me past the exam rooms to his private office, a small space with diplomas on the wall and a model of a human spine on the bookshelf. He sat behind his desk, and I noticed he'd closed the door behind us. That's when my stomach tightened. "Bill," he said, leaning forward, "your blood work came back completely normal. Heart, liver, kidneys, cholesterol. All excellent for a man your age. But there's a discrepancy I need to discuss with you." He pulled up my file on his computer screen. "Your blood type tested as B negative. That's rare. About 2% of the population. But every medical record we have for you going back to 1996 lists you as O positive." I blinked. "Is that a problem?" "I feel fine. Blood types don't change, Bill. They're genetic. Permanent. Either there's been a clerical error spanning nearly 30 years, or your original records were incorrectly entered." He paused. "I want to run the test again with an independent lab to confirm. But I need to ask you something personal." He asked about my children's blood types. Megan was O positive. I remembered because she'd donated blood in college. Tyler was O positive too. Confirmed during an emergency room visit after a construction site accident 3 years ago. Dr. Patel's expression shifted into something I'd later recognize as pity. "Bill, if your blood type is truly B negative, it's genetically impossible for both of your children to be O positive. AB negative parent cannot produce O positive offspring. The genetics simply don't allow it. The words entered my ears but refused to settle in my brain. I heard myself laugh. A short, sharp sound that belonged to someone else. That's impossible. There's got to be a mistake. That's why I want to retest. But Bill, he hesitated. You should prepare yourself for the possibility that the results will be the same. I drove home on autopilot. Down 21st Avenue, past Hillsborough Village, through the neighborhoods I'd known for 40 years. Nashville looked exactly the same honky-tonks glowing on Lower Broadway, the same cranes building condos on the skyline. Everything unchanged except the man behind the steering wheel. I pulled into our driveway on Eastland Avenue at 4:52. The porch light was on. Through the kitchen window, I could see Trish moving between the stove and the counter. Tuesday meant pot roast. 38 years of Tuesdays. And I could predict her movements like music. I sat in my truck for 7 minutes, hands on the wheel, watching my wife through the glass. The woman I'd loved since 1985. The woman who'd held my hand in the delivery room twice. The woman who'd stood beside me when Dawson Construction nearly went bankrupt in 2008. And for the first time in 38 years, I looked at her and felt like I was looking at a stranger. I went inside. Trish smiled, kissed my cheek, smelled like rosemary and something floral. How was the doctor? She asked. Everything good for the surgery? Clean bill of health, I said. The lie came out smooth and easy. Everything's fine. Everything was not fine. Everything might never be fine again. That night, I lay in bed next to my wife and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles in the dark. Trish breathed evenly beside me, peaceful, unaware. And I thought about Megan's face, Tyler's laugh, 38 years of memories that now carried a question mark I couldn't erase. I didn't sleep. Not that night. Not for many nights after. 6 days. That's how long I waited before going back to Vanderbilt. 6 days of eating dinner across from Trish, of reviewing blueprints with Tyler at the office, of answering Megan's Sunday phone call about her 4th graders. 6 days of performing normalcy while something inside me was quietly dying. October 16th. Dr. Patel didn't make me wait. He called me back personally, walked me past the exam rooms to his office again. Same closed door. Same careful expression. B negative, he confirmed. Independent lab. No question. He slid the paper across his desk. And Bill, I pulled your complete medical file from storage. Every record from 1996 onward lists you as O positive. Your insurance forms, surgical consent for your appendectomy in 2001. Even your blood donor card from 1998. Someone changed it, I said. The words came out flat. Not a question. Someone with access to medical records altered your blood type comprehensively. A nurse, a records clerk, someone who knew what they were doing and why. I sat there thinking about who had access in 1996. Who was around back then? Who would have reason to hide my real blood type? The answer kept circling back to one person. But I wasn't ready to land on it yet. I need copies of everything, I told him. Every record. Old and new. He nodded. I'll have them ready by Friday. Bill, I'm sorry. I wasn't sorry. I was calculating. Because sorry is what you say when something bad happens to you. But this wasn't something that happened to me. This was something someone did to me. Deliberately, for nearly 30 years. The DNA kits arrived 3 days later. I'd ordered them from a private lab in Brentwood. Nashville DNA Diagnostics. $750 for expedited processing. 10 days instead of 3 weeks. I paid with a credit card Trish had never seen. One I'd opened years ago for business emergencies. This qualified. Collecting the samples felt criminal. Even though I was potentially the one who'd been wronged. Even though the science might confirm the worst possibility I could imagine. Taking DNA from my own children without their knowledge felt like a betrayal. The irony wasn't lost on me. Megan came for Sunday dinner on October 20th. She did this most weeks, sometimes with Jake, her husband of 3 years. This time she came alone. Jake was visiting his parents in Knoxville. She sat at the kitchen table helping Trish chop vegetables while I pretended to watch the Titans game in the living room. After dinner, Megan used the guest bathroom. I waited 60 seconds, then walked in after she left. Her hairbrush sat on the counter next to the sink. 3 long brown strands caught in the bristles. Megan had my mother's hair. Thick. Dark. The kind that held a curl without trying. Or maybe it was Kevin's hair. Kevin's hair was dark too. I pulled the strands free with a tissue. Sealed them in the collection envelope. My hands were steady. That bothered me. Tyler's sample came Monday morning. He always left his coffee mug on his desk when he went to the warehouse to check shipments. 9:15, like clockwork. I walked into his office, picked up the mug with a napkin, and sealed it in a plastic bag. His saliva on the rim. His DNA. Maybe my son's DNA. Maybe not. I mailed both samples from the post office on Gallatin Avenue. October 21st. Results promised by November 1st. 10 days. 10 days of sitting across the dinner table from Trish and pretending my world wasn't cracking beneath me. 10 days of working beside Tyler in the same office, hearing him call me Dad when he brought morning coffee, watching him laugh with the crew on job sites. 10 days of answering Megan's texts about parent-teacher conferences and Jake's promotion and whether I wanted her cornbread recipe for Thanksgiving. During those 10 days, I started watching. Not investigating. Just observing with new eyes. Things I'd never noticed before. Or things I'd noticed and explained away for decades. Kevin came by the office every single day. That was normal. He was our CFO. But I started counting how long he stayed. How many times his phone buzzed and he stepped outside. How he always seemed to know Trish's schedule. Hey, Trish mentioned she's making pot roast tonight. Mind if I swing by? He said that on Tuesday, October 22nd. He'd said things like that for 20 years. And I'd never once thought it strange. Tyler. My son. 26 years old, working in project management. He'd started at Dawson Construction right after college. I'd been proud of that. My boy. Carrying on the family business. But now I noticed things. The way he checked his phone after every meeting. The way he closed his laptop when I walked into his office. The way he asked questions about our financials that went beyond his job description. How's the Germantown project margin looking? Are we hitting our quarterly targets? When's the last time you updated the company valuation? Questions a project manager doesn't need to ask. Questions a spy does. And Trish. My wife of 38 years. I watched her the way a stranger would. The way she straightened Kevin's collar when he came for dinner. The way she always knew his schedule. The way she'd say, "Oh, Kevin mentioned he'd be free Thursday." As if my brother's availability was information she naturally tracked. 38 years. If Dr. Patel was right, if the DNA confirmed what the blood type suggested, then 38 years of my marriage had been a performance. And I'd been the only one in the audience who didn't know the script. October 29th. 2 days before results were due. I couldn't sleep again. Hadn't slept properly since the 16th. I'd been averaging 3 hours a night. Lying rigid beside Trish, listening to her breathe, wondering how many of those breaths had carried lies. At 1:30 in the morning, I got up. Went downstairs. Stood in the kitchen in the dark, looking out at the backyard. The old oak tree Tyler and I had hung a tire swing from when he was 8. The patio I'd poured myself in 2005. The fence Kevin had helped me build in 2010. The two of us drinking beer and hammering boards on a Saturday afternoon. Every memory in this house was potentially contaminated. Every family photo on the wall was potentially evidence of a crime I didn't know was being committed against me. I opened the refrigerator. Closed it. Opened a cabinet. Closed it. My hands needed something to do, and my brain needed something to solve. But you can't solve a problem when you don't have all the data yet. 2 more days. 2 more days of not knowing. 2 more days of watching my brother pour coffee in my kitchen like he owned the place. And maybe he did. Maybe he'd owned everything that was supposed to be mine for longer than I could imagine. I wasn't looking for evidence that night. I need you to understand that. I was looking for third-quarter tax documents that Kevin was supposed to have filed with our accountant 2 weeks earlier. The October deadline had passed, and our CPA had called twice asking where the paperwork was. Kevin kept saying he'd handle it. He hadn't. October 28th. A Monday night. I'd stayed late at the office, finishing a bid proposal for a hotel renovation downtown. Everyone else had gone home by 6. The building was empty. Just me. The hum of the HVAC system, and the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead in that particular way they do when a building is hollow. Kevin's office sat at the end of the second-floor hallway. Corner office. I'd given it to him 12 years ago when the company outgrew our original space. Nice view of 12th Avenue South. Mahogany desk he'd picked out himself. A company credit card expense I'd approved without questioning. The tax documents should have been in his filing cabinet. They weren't. I checked his desk drawers. Nothing. Then I remembered the safe. Every department head had one. Company policy. I had the master override code for all safes in the building. Owner's prerogative. Something I'd never once used in Kevin's office. Never had reason to. I punched in the code. The safe clicked open. Inside were the usual things. Backup hard drives, some cash, insurance documents. And behind everything, wedged into the back corner like something hidden deliberately, a black USB drive. No label. No marking. Just a plain black rectangle that didn't belong to any company system I knew about. I should have left it alone. I should have grabbed the tax documents from the filing cabinet downstairs where Kevin's assistant probably had copies and gone home. I should have waited for the DNA results before making any more moves. I plugged the USB into my laptop. 3 folders. The first was labeled personal. The second, financials. The third, simply plan. I opened personal first. Emails. Hundreds of them. Spanning 29 years. The oldest dated March 1995. 8 months before Megan was born. Kevin's email to an address I recognized as Trish's old Hotmail account. Last night was incredible. I know we said we'd stop after the wedding, but I can't, Trish. When Bill's at that job site in Murfreesboro, Thursday through Saturday, come to my apartment. 7. I'll cook. My hands started shaking. Not with anger. Not yet. With something colder. Something that felt like the ground opening beneath my feet. I scrolled. Email after email. Year after year. 1995. 96. The language shifted over time. Less passionate. More domestic. Less about stolen nights. More about shared decisions. September 1996. Our daughter will be born next month. I've arranged everything at the hospital. Denise knows what to do with the records. Bill's blood type will be changed to match. No one will question paternity. He'll hold our baby girl and believe she's his. Our daughter. Megan. Born October 4th, 1996. The baby I'd held in the delivery room, with tears streaming down my face. The baby I'd driven home at 15 miles per hour because I was terrified of every bump in the road. Kevin's daughter, not mine. I kept reading. My jaw locked so tight, my teeth ached. March 1998. Trish says, Bill suspects nothing. He's working 60-hour weeks trying to grow the company. Easy to keep him distracted. He trusts me completely. That's the hardest part. Some days I feel like the worst person alive. Other days I don't feel anything at all. 2016. Tyler knows now. Trish told him last week. He was angry at first, but I talked to him. Fishing trip. Just the 2 of us. He understands. He's a good kid. He'll keep quiet. And honestly, I think he respects me more now. He's been asking about the business, wanting to learn the financial side. Smart boy. My boy. I closed the personal folder. Sat in the dark office for 3 full minutes. Breathing. Counting the breaths. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. The way you breathe when you're trying not to scream. Then I opened financials. 47 invoices. All from subcontractors I'd never heard of. Precision Plumbing Solutions. Southeast Electrical Associates. Cumberland Valley Excavation. Professional-sounding names. Official-looking invoices. But when I cross-referenced them against our vendor database, none of them existed. No tax IDs, no business registrations, no physical addresses that led anywhere real. Each invoice was signed by Kevin. Approved by Kevin. Paid through accounts Kevin controlled. Amounts ranging from $18,000 to $65,000. Spread across 12 years. I did the math in my head. Rough total. Over $2 million. My brother had been stealing from me for 12 years. While sitting in the corner office I gave him. While eating Thanksgiving dinner at my table. While shaking my hand every Monday morning and calling me brother. I opened the third folder. Plan. Recent emails. 2024. Kevin to Tyler. Subject line. Timeline update. Robert Chen confirmed for January 15th meeting. He'll present the acquisition offer. Bill will think it's an outside investor. We priced the company at $1.8 million, 40% below actual value. Bill sells, thinking he's getting a good deal for retirement. I buy back through the LLC within 6 months. Tyler inherits operational control. Clean transition. No suspicion. Tyler's reply sent November 2nd. 3 days from now. Sounds good. I'll keep monitoring from inside. Dad seems normal. No suspicion. Weekly updates, continuing as planned. Should I push the February timeline or keep it loose? Kevin's response. Keep it February. Don't rush. Bill trusts us. That's our biggest asset. Always has been. I sat in Kevin's chair in Kevin's office in the building I'd built with my own hands. The screen glowed blue in the dark room. Outside, 12th Avenue was quiet. A car passed. Its headlights swept across the ceiling and disappeared. 28 years. My brother had been sleeping with my wife for 28 years. He'd fathered both my children. He'd stolen over $2 million from my company. He'd planted my own son inside my business as a spy. And now he was planning to take the company itself. Everything I'd built since 1993. Every foundation I'd poured. Every wall I'd raised. Every contract I'd fought for. He wanted all of it. And he'd been smiling at me the entire time. I ejected the USB. Put it in my jacket pocket. Closed the safe. Turned off the lights. Walked to my truck in the empty parking lot. Started the engine. My brother. My own blood. He didn't just sleep with my wife. He stole my children, my money, and he was planning to steal my life's work. And he'd done it all while sitting across from me at Sunday dinner with a glass of my whiskey in his hand and a smile on his face. I pulled out of the parking lot at 9:43. Drove home in silence. Walked inside. Kissed Trish on the forehead. Said goodnight. Went to bed. Lay in the dark. And something fundamental shifted inside me. The Bill Dawson who trusted his brother, who believed in his family, who assumed the best about the people he loved. That man died in Kevin's office at 8:17 on a Monday night in October. In his place, something colder woke up. Something patient. Something that understood for the first time that trust had been a weapon used against him for 3 decades. But not anymore. November 5th. The call came at 2:14 in the afternoon. I was standing on a job site in Franklin, watching Danny Reeves and his crew pour a foundation for a 3,000-square-foot custom home. The concrete truck backed in slow, the chute swinging into position. My crew worked the pour with practiced rhythm. Shovels and vibrators and levels. Building something solid from liquid stone. My phone buzzed. Nashville DNA Diagnostics. Brentwood number. Mr. Dawson. This is Angela from Nashville DNA Diagnostics. I'm calling with your test results. Both comparisons are complete. I walked away from the noise, stood at the edge of the lot where the gravel met grass. A hawk circled overhead in the pale November sky. "Go ahead," I said. Her voice carried that clinical neutrality professionals use when delivering news they know will break something. Comparison 1. William Dawson versus Megan Dawson. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. I closed my eyes. Comparison 2. William Dawson versus Tyler Dawson. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. 0. Not unlikely. Not improbable. 0. The absolute mathematical certainty that neither of my children shared my blood. "Thank you, Angela," I said. My voice sounded normal. That surprised me. "I'll email the full reports now." "Is there anything else I can help you with?" "No. That's everything." I ended the call, stood at the edge of that foundation pour, and watched my crew do what I'd taught them. Steady, level, measured. They were building something that would stand for decades. I'd spent 38 years building a family that had never existed. The DNA confirmation of Kevin came 8 days later. I'd collected his sample at a Sunday dinner on November 3rd. The whole family around the table. Kevin brought bourbon. Good stuff. Blanton's. He poured generous glasses for himself and me. Made a toast. "To family," he said. "To the Dawson men." I waited until he went to the bathroom. Took his glass. Sealed it in a bag I'd carried in my jacket pocket. Mailed it the next morning. Expedited. $450 extra. November 13th. Results. Kevin Brewer versus Megan Dawson. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. Kevin Brewer versus Tyler Dawson. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. I printed 2 copies at the office. Locked one in my personal safe, put the other in a folder, and drove to Murfreesboro. Frank Dawson, my father, 71 years old. Retired master carpenter who'd built half the custom cabinets in Rutherford County before his hands got too stiff to hold a chisel steady. He lived alone in the same split-level ranch he'd bought in 1978. My mother passed in 2011. Pancreatic cancer. Quick and cruel. I pulled into his driveway at 4:47. His truck was there. Workshop light on in the garage. I found him at his bench, sanding a cutting board. Red oak. The sawdust smell hit me like a memory. I'd grown up in this garage watching those hands shape wood. He looked up when I walked in. Read my face. The way only a father can. Set down the sandpaper. Didn't ask what was wrong. Just waited. "It's Kevin," I said. Frank closed his eyes. Let out a long breath through his nose. When he opened them, they were wet. He nodded once. Slow. Heavy. "How long have you known?" I asked. "I've suspected since 2003. He said quietly. "Your mother's birthday party." I saw Kevin and Trish outside by the garage. The way he touched her back. The way she leaned into him. It was small. Anyone else would have missed it. But I've been reading people for 70 years. My knees went soft. I sat down on the workbench stool. "You never said anything." Frank's jaw worked. His hands gripped the edge of the bench. "What was I supposed to say, Bill?" I had no proof. Just a feeling. Just one moment. That looked wrong. Was I going to blow up your marriage, your family, your children's lives? Because of a hunch. He looked at me. Really looked at me. That steady, unflinching gaze I'd known my entire life. I almost said something in 2008, when the business was struggling and Kevin offered to handle all the finances. Something felt wrong about how eager he was. How he wanted access to everything. But you trusted him, and I didn't have evidence. He stood. walked to the small refrigerator in the corner, took out 2 bottles of water, handed me one, sat back down across from me. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. Dr. Patel. The blood types, the DNA, the USB, the emails spanning 29 years, the 47 fake invoices, Tyler as a mole, the plan to steal my company. I laid it out methodically, the way you read blueprints, one detail at a time. Frank listened without interrupting. His face didn't change, but his knuckles went white around the water bottle. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. The workshop was silent, except for the furnace, clicking on somewhere in the house. "How much did he take?" Frank asked. "Over 2 million. Maybe 2.3. I won't know exactly until I get a forensic audit." Frank nodded. "Slow. Deliberate. Then we get you the right people." He stood, pulled a battered address book from a drawer, flipped to a page marked with a post-it note. "Martin Schaefer, family law attorney downtown. Used to be a federal prosecutor before going private. He's expensive, but he's the best in Nashville for fraud cases. How do you know him? He did your mother's estate work. Smart. Aggressive. Doesn't flinch." Frank flipped another page. "And Ray Calloway, private investigator. Used to work Nashville Metro homicide. Retired at 45. Now he finds things people try to hide. Tell him I sent you." I stared at my father. The battered address book. The post-it notes. The prepared recommendations. "You've been thinking about this." Frank met my eyes. "I've been watching that boy steal from you for 20 years, Bill. I just couldn't prove it. I promised your mother I wouldn't blow up your life without evidence. She made me swear, even after she was gone. I kept that promise." He set the address book on the bench between us. "But now you have evidence. Now you can stop him." He put his hand on my shoulder, the same hand that taught me to swing a hammer at age 9. That guided my first saw cut. That built my first toolbox with me on a Saturday morning 40 years ago. "I'll be right beside you, son. Whatever you need, however long it takes. We finish this together." I drove back to Nashville with Martin Schaefer's number in my phone and Ray Calloway's card in my wallet. By sundown, I'd called both. Martin agreed to meet Thursday. Ray said he could start surveillance by Monday. My father, 71 years old, hands too stiff to hold a chisel, but steady enough to hold me up when everything else was collapsing. He'd watched Kevin steal from me for 2 decades and carried that suspicion alone because he'd promised my mother he wouldn't destroy my family without proof. Now I had proof. And I had my father's quiet rage standing behind me. The man who'd taught me to build was going to help me tear it all down. Ray Calloway didn't look like a private investigator. He looked like a high school football coach who'd aged into something quieter. 48 years old. Broad shoulders, cropped gray hair. A handshake that told you he'd spent 2 decades chasing people who didn't want to be found. His office sat above a barbecue joint on Broadway. The kind of place tourists walked past without looking up. The smoke from downstairs seeped through the floorboards. Everything smelled like hickory and old coffee. We met on November 7th. A Thursday. I laid out what I had. The DNA reports. Printouts from the USB. The emails. The invoices. The plan. Ray went through everything methodically, making notes on a yellow legal pad in handwriting so small it looked like code. When he finished, he leaned back, crossed his arms. "How long has your brother worked for you?" 20 years. "And your son?" 4. "Since he graduated college." Ray nodded slowly. "You want full surveillance on Kevin, Trish, and Tyler. Phone patterns, meetings, financials, daily movements." "Yes. And I need to know if anyone else is involved. I need to know the full scope before I make any moves." Ray quoted me $5,500 for 2 weeks of coverage on 3 subjects. I wrote the check without hesitating. He said he'd have preliminary findings within 72 hours. He had them in 48. November 9th. Saturday morning. Ray called at 7:15. I was sitting in my truck outside a hardware store on Nolansville Road, pretending to run errands. Your brother and your wife met at the Hermitage Hotel yesterday afternoon. Room 304. Checked in at 1:47, checked out at 4:22. Paid cash. I have photographs of both entering and exiting the building separately. Different entrances, staggered by 6 minutes. I gripped the steering wheel. How often? Based on hotel records I've accessed through a contact, room 304 has been booked under the name K. Bradley every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon since March of this year. Before that, it was room 217 at the same hotel going back to 2021. Tuesday and Thursday. Kevin always said he had client meetings those afternoons. Off-site consultations. I'd never once questioned it. 20 years of Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's more, Ray said. Your son Tyler has been sending emails from his company account to a personal Gmail address belonging to Kevin every Friday evening between 5 and 5:30. Subject line is always weekly update. Contents include project margins, staffing decisions, contract bids, client lists, and financial summaries. He's been doing this consistently since August of 2022. Over 2 years of internal company data transmitted to Kevin outside secure channels. 2 years. Tyler had been feeding Kevin everything for 2 years. Every bid I prepared. Every contract I negotiated. Every financial decision I made. Kevin knew it all, before I'd even told him officially. That's how he'd been able to time the shell company acquisition so perfectly. He knew exactly what my company was worth, because my own son was giving him the numbers. Ray continued. I've also identified the investor Kevin's been meeting. Robert Chen. Real name: Robert Chen Whitfield. On paper, he runs a private equity firm called Cornerstone Capital Partners out of an office in Green Hills. But Cornerstone is a shell. Registered 6 months ago. Single-member LLC. And the registered agent? A paralegal at a firm that handles Kevin Brewer's personal legal matters. So Robert Chen works for Kevin. Robert Chen is Kevin. Different face at the table, but the money flows back to your brother through 3 layers of LLC. The plan is exactly what those emails described. Kevin presents Chen as an outside investor. You sell at 40% below value, thinking you're cashing out for retirement. Kevin buys back within 6 months through the shell structure. Your son inherits operational control. You walk away with $1.8 million for a company worth over $3 million. I sat in the silence. The hardware store parking lot. Saturday morning. People loading lumber into trucks. Normal life happening all around me, while mine continued to disintegrate. What about my daughter? I asked. Megan. Is she involved? Ray's tone shifted. Softer. Your daughter shows zero involvement. I've monitored her communications, her movements, her interactions with Kevin and Trish. She has no contact with Kevin outside of normal family gatherings. She's not included in any group communications between the other 3. She doesn't have access to any financial information about your company. There's no email chain, no text thread, no meeting that includes her. He paused. Bill, your daughter doesn't know. Based on everything I've observed over the past 48 hours, Megan Dawson Harris has no idea that Kevin is her biological father. She has no idea about the embezzlement, the company acquisition plan, or Tyler's role as an informant. She's completely outside this conspiracy. I exhaled. Something loosened in my chest that I hadn't realized was clenched. At least one of them was innocent. At least one of the people I'd raised and loved hadn't been lying to my face for years. Ray kept talking. I've also confirmed Tyler's awareness of the biological situation. A text exchange between Tyler and Kevin from last Thursday. Tyler wrote, quote, Dad seems normal, no suspicion. Weekly update sent. How's the Chen meeting shaping up? End quote. Kevin replied. Quote, January 15th confirmed. Keep everything steady. Don't overperform. Don't underperform. Just be his son for 2 more months. End quote. Just be his son for 2 more months. That's what my boy had been reduced to. A performance. A role Kevin directed and Tyler executed. 2 more months of calling me dad, of bringing me morning coffee, of asking about my weekend. All of it theater. All of it buying time until they could strip me clean. Ray asked what I wanted to do next. I told him to keep watching. 2 more weeks. Document everything. Phone records, hotel visits, Tyler's Friday emails, Kevin's meetings with Robert Chen. Build the file until it was airtight. Then I'm going to need one more thing from you, Ray, I said. Namit, my daughter. I need to tell her the truth. And when I do, I need to know she's safe. That they can't get to her, pressure her, turn her against me. Ray's voice was steady. I'll keep eyes on her too. Protective surveillance. If anyone from the other 3 contacts her in a way that seems coordinated or pressuring, you'll know within the hour. I thanked him. Ended the call. Sat in that parking lot for another 10 minutes. People walked past my truck, carrying 2x4s and bags of concrete mix. Building things. Simple things. Things that made sense. My son was a spy in my own company. My brother was stealing my business in broad daylight. My wife was the prize they'd been sharing for 28 years. But my daughter didn't know any of it. Megan was clean. And that meant I wasn't completely alone. I just had to tell her the truth. And pray she'd stand with me, instead of them. Thanksgiving Day. November 28th. The last time my entire family would sit at the same table without knowing what was coming. Kevin arrived at noon carrying a bottle of Blanton's and wearing that easy grin that used to make me feel lucky to have him as a brother. He clapped my shoulder at the door. Happy Thanksgiving, Bill. House smells incredible. Trish had been cooking since 6 in the morning. Turkey, cornbread dressing, sweet potato casserole with the marshmallow top. Megan loved as a kid. The house on Eastland Avenue smelled like every Thanksgiving I could remember. Warm and golden, and completely false. Tyler showed up at 12:30 with a pecan pie from Loveless Cafe. Hey, Dad, he said, setting it on the counter. Kissing Trish's cheek, then pulling out his phone. Probably texting Kevin that everything looked normal. Probably composing his Friday update in his head while passing the gravy. Megan and Jake arrived last. Megan hugged me at the door. Long, tight, the way she always did. You okay, Dad? You look tired. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just busy season. We sat around the table. 8 people. Kevin carved the turkey the way he'd done for 15 years. Tyler raised his glass. To family, he said. To the Dawson name. Everyone drank. I touched my glass to my lips but didn't swallow. I watched them. All of them. Kevin telling a story about a fishing trip. Tyler laughing too loud. Trish refilling plates with practiced warmth. And Megan, my daughter, sitting between Jake and Tyler, completely unaware that she was the only honest person at the table besides me. I memorized it, every detail. The way Kevin's hand brushed Trish's when she passed the rolls. The way Tyler checked his phone under the table. The way Megan looked at me and smiled. Pure. Real. The only real thing in the room. This was their last performance. And they didn't know the curtain was about to fall. The next morning, November 29th, 8:47, I texted Megan. Coffee? Just us. Barista parlor, Germantown. 10 o'clock. She replied in 2 minutes. Sure. Everything okay? Everything's fine. Just want to see my girl. Barista parlor sits on Buchanan Street in Germantown. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, the smell of fresh roasted beans and warm pastry. A neighborhood place. Quiet on a Friday morning after the holiday. Most people were sleeping off turkey and pie. I arrived 20 minutes early. took a corner table away from the windows, ordered black coffee, set the folder on the seat beside me, 3 inches thick, DNA reports, USB printouts, surveillance photographs, Ray's preliminary findings, evidence that would change my daughter's life forever. Megan walked in at 10:02, wearing a green sweater and jeans, hair pulled back. She spotted me immediately, smiled, crossed the room, kissed my cheek, sat down, ordered a latte. "Okay, Dad." She studied my face. Her smile faded slowly. "Something's wrong. I can tell. You've had that look for weeks. Is it the surgery? Is something wrong with your knee? Megan, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be hard to hear. All of it. But I need you to let me finish before you respond. Can you do that?" Her eyes shifted, the teacher instinct kicking in, the part of her that dealt with scared children and difficult parents, and things that needed calm, patient handling. She nodded. "Okay, Dad, I'm listening." I pulled the folder onto the table, opened it, started with the DNA reports, the lab results with their cold clinical numbers. I explained what Dr. Patel had told me about blood types, what the DNA tests confirmed, what 0.00% meant. Megan's face went white. Her latte sat untouched, steam curling upward. I showed her the USB printouts, the emails between Kevin and Trish. I didn't make her read them all, just the critical ones. 1996. Our daughter will be born next month. 2016. Tyler knows now. He's a good kid. He'll keep quiet. I showed her the invoices. 47 fake companies. $2.3 million. 12 years of theft. I showed her the plan. Robert Chen. Cornerstone Capital. The shell company acquisition designed to strip me of everything I'd built. I showed her Tyler's texts. Dad seems normal. No suspicion. Just be his son for 2 more months. And then I stopped. Closed the folder. Looked at my daughter across the table. Her hands were trembling. Tears ran down both cheeks, dripping onto the wooden table. Her breathing was shallow, ragged. The breathing of someone whose world had just been rebuilt without her consent. The cafe was quiet around us. The espresso machine hissed. Someone laughed near the counter. Normal sounds in a morning that was anything but. Megan didn't speak for a long time. Maybe 3 minutes. Maybe 5. She stared at the folder, then at her hands, then out the window at the quiet Germantown street. When she finally looked at me, her eyes were red but steady. "How long have you known?" she whispered. "Since October 10th. 7 weeks. 7 weeks. She wiped her face with both hands. Hard, like she was pulling herself back together. 7 weeks. And you carried this alone. I had your grandfather. Frank knows. He's been helping me." Megan nodded. Slow. Processing. "Does Tyler know that you know?" "No. None of them do. I've been watching, gathering evidence, building a case. But I haven't made a move yet." "Why are you telling me now?" "Because you deserve the truth. And because I need you to know that in all of this, you're the one person who didn't betray me." Ray confirmed it. "You had no idea. You're not part of any of it." Fresh tears fell. She pressed both hands flat on the table. Breathed deep. Once. Twice. 3 times. The teacher composing herself. The woman finding her center. Then she looked at me with something new in her eyes. Not just grief. Not just shock. Something harder. Something that reminded me of Frank. "He's not my father," she said. Her voice was quiet, but certain. "Kevin is not my father. You are. You've always been. Biology doesn't change 28 years of school plays and bedtime stories and teaching me to drive in that old truck." She reached across the table, took my hand, squeezed hard. "What do you need me to do, Dad?" And right there, in a corner booth of a coffee shop in Germantown, with tears on both our faces and a folder full of destruction between us. I broke. For the first time since Dr. Patel's office. Short, controlled, but real. My daughter, still my daughter, choosing me. I need access to the family group chat, I said when I could speak again. The one they excluded me from. You're still in it. I need to see what they're planning and when. Megan wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders. You'll have it by tonight. We sat for another hour. She asked questions. I answered them. She cried twice more. But every time she pulled herself back, she came back harder, more focused, more resolved. When we finally stood to leave, she hugged me. Long and tight. The way she'd hugged me at the door yesterday. But different now. Not a daughter hugging her father out of habit. A soldier choosing her side. We're gonna stop them, she said into my shoulder. Whatever it takes, Dad. I'm with you. I held my daughter and believed her. And for the first time in 7 weeks, I didn't feel alone. Megan delivered at 11:47 that same night. A text with 14 screenshots attached. The family group chat. They called it Family Business. Created in March 2022. 4 members. Kevin, Trish, Tyler, and Megan. But Megan had been muted since day one. Added for appearances but never tagged, never included in the real conversations. They'd used her presence as camouflage. If anyone ever looked, it was just a normal family chat. Nothing suspicious. Except Megan had never bothered to unmute it. She'd assumed it was just Kevin sharing recipes and Tyler posting job site photos. She'd never scrolled back to read what they were really saying. I read every message. 3 years of them. Sitting in my home office at midnight, with the phone screen glowing blue in the dark. The early messages were careful. Business talk. Revenue projections. Kevin asking Tyler about specific contracts. But by mid-2023, they'd stopped pretending. Kevin, August 20th, 2023. The company's worth 3.2 based on last year's numbers. If we time this right, we can present the acquisition at 1.8. Bill will think he's getting a retirement package. He'll sign because he trusts us. Tyler. Same thread. How do we get him to agree to sell? Trish. 20 minutes later. Leave that to me. I'll plant the idea of retirement. Tell him his knee is getting worse. That he deserves to relax. He listens to me. I stared at that message. He listens to me. 38 years of marriage distilled into a manipulation tactic. I'd mentioned retirement exactly once, last summer, after a particularly long week. Trish had encouraged it enthusiastically. Now I knew why. The messages got worse as they got more recent. Tyler. December 1st, 2024. 3 weeks before my planned confrontation. Once we own the company, we cut Bill out completely. Kevin becomes CEO. I'm VP of Operations. Mom gets the house and the retirement accounts. Bill gets 1.8 and a thank you card. Kevin's reply. Don't get cocky. We stay patient. February 15th is the target. Robert Chen, meeting January 15th to plant the seed. Bill agrees to sell by February. We close by April. Clean. Professional. No drama. Trish, same day. Just keep him happy until February. I'll handle the emotional side. Cook his favorite meals. Talk about vacations. Make him feel loved and ready to slow down. Make him feel loved. Not love him. Make him feel loved. Performance direction. From the woman I'd shared a bed with for 38 years. I saved every screenshot to 3 separate locations. Cloud backup, external hard drive, and printed copies in Frank's safe in Murfreesboro. Then I called Ray. I need you to find someone for me. Denise Brewer. Kevin's ex-wife. They divorced in 2021. Last known address somewhere in Williamson County. Ray had her location within 4 hours. A townhouse in Franklin off Columbia Avenue. I called her the next morning. November 30th. Denise? This is Bill Dawson. Kevin's brother. Silence. Then a short, bitter laugh. I wondered when you'd call. I've been waiting 4 years. We met at Puckett's Grocery in downtown Franklin that afternoon. Old general store turned restaurant. Fried chicken and biscuits and the smell of country ham. Denise sat in a back booth already waiting. 55 years old. Thin. Hard eyes. The kind of face that forms when you've spent years being lied to and finally stopped believing anything. She didn't waste time. You found out about Kevin and Trish. Not a question. A statement. How long have you known? I asked. Since 2019. Found emails on his laptop. Confronted him. He begged. Promised to stop. Signed a postnuptial. Giving me the house. And $200,000 if he cheated again. She smiled without warmth. He cheated again. I got the house. I got the money. And I got out. Did you know about the children? She nodded. Suspected. Never confirmed. But after the divorce, I stopped caring whose kids they were. I just wanted away from him. I leaned forward. Did you know about the embezzlement? Denise's expression shifted. Careful now. What embezzlement? I told her about the 47 invoices. The 2.3 million. The shell company. Her face went through several emotions. Surprise wasn't one of them. He did the same thing to his employer before you, she said. Henderson and Cole Engineering. 2000 through 2005. He skimmed about $180,000 before they restructured, and he quit before they caught it. I have records. Bank statements he forgot to delete before the divorce. It was his pattern, Bill. Find someone who trusts him. Burrow in. And bleed them dry. She reached into her purse. Pulled out a USB drive. I made copies of everything during the divorce. Financial records, emails, account transfers. My attorney said to keep them in case Kevin ever tried to come after me. She slid it across the table. Take it. Whatever you're planning, this will help prove a pattern of behavior. I took the drive. Thank you, Denise. She looked at me with something close to pity. I'm sorry it took you this long. Kevin's a parasite. Always has been. First your parents, then Henderson and Cole, then you. He'll never stop. Unless someone stops him permanently. I nodded. That's exactly what I'm doing. December 12th through 15th. 4 days that turned evidence into ammunition. Martin Schaefer brought in a forensic CPA named Alan Woodruff. Bald. Precise. The kind of man who found music in spreadsheets. Woodruff spent 3 days inside our financial system with access I granted after hours. His preliminary report landed on Martin's desk December 15th. 47 fraudulent invoices across 12 years. Total confirmed amount, $2.3 million. 6 invoices, co-signed by Tyler Dawson, totaling $340,000. All payments routed through 3 shell companies ultimately controlled by Kevin Brewer. Pattern consistent with wire fraud under federal statute, 18 U.S.C. 1343. Martin called me that afternoon. This is federal, Bill. Wire fraud, bank fraud, embezzlement of company funds through electronic transfer, FBI jurisdiction, Nashville field office. I have a contact there. Agent named Patricia Torres. She's handled 3 cases like this in the past 2 years. How fast can we move? Martin paused. I can have a warrant package ready by December 18th. If we coordinate with the FBI, we could execute on the 20th. But Bill, once federal agents are involved, this moves on their timeline. You'd need to be ready for simultaneous action. Confrontation and arrest on the same day. December 20th, I said. Emergency company meeting. 9 in the morning. Kevin and Tyler will both be there. They always attend Friday meetings. You want to confront them in the same room where the FBI makes the arrest? I want my brother to hear exactly what he's done before they put the handcuffs on. I want him to know that I know everything. And I want Tyler to watch it happen." Martin was quiet for a moment. Then his voice came back, sharp and focused. "I'll make the call. December 20th it is." I hung up. Sat in my office. The late afternoon light was fading. Through my window, I could see the warehouse floor where Danny's crew was loading materials for Monday's job. Normal operations. Normal business. 12 more days of normal before everything exploded. 12 days. I circled December 20th on the calendar behind my desk. Red marker. Drew a line through it. The last day my brother would ever walk into my building as a free man. The last day Tyler would sit in the office I'd given him. The last day anyone in this family would underestimate the man they'd been stealing from for 28 years. December 20th. Friday. I woke at 4:32, without an alarm. The house was dark and still. Trish breathed evenly beside me, the same measured rhythm she'd faked for 38 years. Her last night in this bed. She just didn't know it yet. I showered. Dressed deliberately. Dark gray slacks, blue Oxford shirt. The leather belt Megan had given me last Christmas. My good watch. Not because the occasion demanded formality, but because I wanted to remember every detail of this day with clarity. The last day of the old life. I arrived at Dawson Construction at 6:15. The parking lot was empty. The December morning was cold, the sky still black. Nashville's skyline glowing amber against low clouds. I unlocked the front door, turned off the alarm, and walked through the dark building to the second-floor conference room. I worked methodically, connected my laptop to the ceiling projector, loaded the USB with the invoice files, each one bookmarked, cued the surveillance footage Ray had captured of Kevin entering his office and signing documents after hours, placed printed copies of the DNA reports in a manila folder at the head of the table, set my phone beside it, the group chat audio already loaded and ready to play. Then I sat down in my chair at the head of the table. My chair, my building, my company, built with my hands and my sweat and 31 years of honest work. And I waited. At 6:43, my phone buzzed. "Megan, I'm praying for you, Dad. You've got this. Call me when it's done. I love you," I typed back. "Love you too, sweetheart. Thank you for everything." At 7:12, Frank called. I answered on the first ring. "You ready, son?" His voice was steady, strong. The voice of a man who'd built things his whole life and knew what it meant to take something apart. "Ready. Give them hell." "And Bill?" "Yeah, Dad. I'm proud of you. No matter what happens in that room today, your mother would be too." I closed my eyes, held the phone tight. "Thank you. Go get your life back." I ended the call, set the phone on the table, took 3 deep breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The building was still empty, just me and the hum of the heating system and the quiet tick of the wall clock. Employees started arriving at 7:30. Danny Reeves first, as always. Then the crew leads. Accounting staff, project managers. Normal Friday morning. Coffee brewing in the break room. Voices in the hallway. Nobody knew what was about to happen in this room. At 8:27, Ray texted. FBI team in position. 2 agents in unmarked sedan, East Lot. 2 more in the lobby disguised as delivery drivers, awaiting your signal. I replied. Signal will be when I open the conference room door. Copy. Kevin walked in at 8:43. 4 minutes early. He wore the charcoal blazer he always wore to meetings, a coffee from Frothy Monkey in one hand, phone in the other. He smiled when he saw me already seated. "Morning, brother. Early bird gets the worm, huh?" He pulled out his usual chair, second from the head, the seat I'd given him 20 years ago. "What's this meeting about? You were cryptic in the email." Year-end review, I said evenly. Some items I want to go through. Before we close the books. Kevin nodded, sipping his coffee. Relaxed. Confident. The posture of a man who believed he was untouchable. Sure thing. Tyler should be here, any minute. Tyler walked in at 8:47. Phone in hand, thumbs moving. Probably sending Kevin his last weekly update. He was wearing dark jeans and a button-down. The office casual look he'd adopted since starting at the company. He glanced up from his phone. Morning, Dad. What's on the agenda? Sit down, Tyler. There it was. Just the slightest shift in my voice. Something harder beneath the normal tone. Tyler's eyes flickered, registering it. He sat. I stood. Walked to the door. Closed it. The click of the latch sounded louder than it should have. I walked back to the head of the table. Remained. Standing. Two men. My brother and my son. Sitting in chairs I'd bought. In a building I'd built. In a company I'd grown from nothing. Both of them wearing clothes I'd indirectly paid for. Both of them carrying phones with plans to destroy me, saved in their recent messages. I picked up the remote for the projector. Clicked it on. The screen glowed white for a moment. Then the first slide appeared. I want to show you something interesting I found during our year-end financial review, I said. My voice was calm. Controlled. The way you speak when you've rehearsed a moment in your head 100 times and finally get to deliver it. The first image appeared on screen. Invoice number 4473. Precision Plumbing Solutions. $42,000. Dated March 15th, 2020. Kevin's signature at the bottom. Clear as daylight. Kevin's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. I clicked to the next slide. Invoice number 4479. Southeast Electrical Associates. $28,000. June 2020. Kevin's signature again. Kevin set his coffee down. Carefully. His jaw tightened. Click. 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 I moved through them. Slide after slide. Invoice after invoice. 47 total. Each one bearing Kevin's signature. Each one from a company that didn't exist. Each one paid to accounts that traced back to Kevin through 3 layers of shell companies. The room was silent. Tyler had gone pale. His phone sat face down on the table, forgotten. Kevin's expression had shifted from confidence to something rigid and unreadable. After the invoices, I switched to the surveillance footage. Kevin, captured by the security camera I'd had Ray install outside his office 3 weeks ago. Sitting at his desk at 9:47 on a Tuesday night. Signing documents. Documents that matched the fake invoices. Time-stamped and crystal clear. I let the footage run for 30 seconds. Then I paused it. Kevin's face frozen on screen. Pen in hand. Committing fraud in high definition. Bill. Kevin's voice came out tight. Controlled. His hands were flat on the table. Listen. I can explain this. There's context you're not seeing. These are legitimate subcontractor payments that got miscategorized. The accounting system flagged them wrong. No, I said, if you'll just let me pull up the original vendor files. I can show you. No, Kevin. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. These 47 companies don't exist. They have no tax IDs, no business registrations, no physical addresses. Every dollar paid to them went into accounts you control through Cornerstone Capital Partners. Alan Woodruff confirmed it. $2.3 million over 12 years. Kevin's mouth opened. Closed. His eyes darted to Tyler. Tyler was staring at the table, face gray, breathing shallow. And Tyler. I looked at my son. 6 of those invoices bear your signature. $340,000. You co-signed them, knowing they were fraudulent. Tyler didn't look up. His hands were shaking. Kevin stood. Palms on the table, leaning forward. Bill, This is a family matter. We can work this out between us. Just shut that projector off, and let's talk like brothers. I picked up my phone, unlocked it, pressed play. Tyler's voice filled the conference room. Recorded from the group chat. Clear and unmistakable. Once we own the company, we cut Bill out completely. Kevin becomes CEO. I'm VP. Mom gets the house. Bill gets 1.8 and a thank you card. Kevin's face collapsed. Tyler's head snapped up. Both of them staring at my phone like it was a loaded weapon, which it was. I let the audio keep playing. Kevin's voice now, joining Tyler's in the recording. The sound of my brother planning my destruction in his own words. Robert Chen meeting confirmed January 15th. Bill agrees to sell by February. We close by April. Clean. Professional. No drama. Then Trish. Her voice filling the room where I'd built my business. Where I'd held staff Christmas parties and celebrated contract milestones and shaken hands with clients who trusted me. Just keep him happy until February. I'll handle the emotional side, cook his favorite meals, make him feel loved. I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was absolute. Kevin had lowered himself back into his chair. His blazer was rumpled where he'd gripped the table edge. Tyler hadn't moved, hadn't breathed, it seemed. His face was the color of wet concrete. I picked up the manila folder, set it on the table between them, opened it slowly. The DNA report. 2 pages. Bold numbers across the top. This is a paternity test, I said. Run twice. Independent labs. William Dawson versus Megan Dawson. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. William Dawson versus Tyler Dawson. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. I pulled out the second page. Kevin Brewer versus Megan Dawson. 99.97%. Kevin Brewer versus Tyler Dawson. 99.98%. I looked at Kevin. My brother's face had gone gray. Not white. Gray. The color of something dying. 28 years, I said. You fathered my children. You slept with my wife in the same bed I paid for. You stole $2.3 million from the company I built. And you planned to take the rest while your son sat in my office pretending to be mine. Kevin's voice came out strangled. Bill, I'm your brother. We can. This doesn't have to. You stopped being my brother in 1995, the day you climbed into bed with Trish. Everything since then has been a performance. And it's over. I turned to Tyler. He was looking at me now, his eyes wet, his jaw trembling. The boy I'd driven to baseball practice. The boy I'd taught to use a level, a saw, a tape measure. The boy who'd sat in my passenger seat at 16, learning to drive while I told him to check his mirrors. And you, I said. My voice cracked. Just barely. Just for a second. You've known since you were 18. 8 years. You've looked me in the face every morning for 4 years at this company and called me Dad while feeding my business secrets to him. Dad, Tyler's voice broke. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. Let me explain, Kevin said. I don't care what Kevin said. You made your own choice. Every Friday email, every update, every time you texted him that Dad seems normal. No suspicion. That was you, Tyler. Not Kevin. You. Tyler was crying now. Silently. Tears running down a face that looked like mine. Or what I'd thought was mine for 26 years. Don't ever call me that again, I said. The words came out quiet and final. Like closing a door you know will never reopen. I straightened. Walked to the conference room door. Put my hand on the handle. Took one breath. Then I opened it. The hallway was crowded. Employees had gathered. Word travels in a small company. Raised voices from the boss's conference room on a Friday morning meant something. Danny Reeves stood at the front. arms crossed, concern on his weathered face. Behind him, 44 other people who depended on me, who trusted me, who'd helped me build Dawson Construction from a two-man operation to a $3 million company. And behind them, walking through the front lobby with badges visible, 4 people who didn't work here, 2 FBI agents in dark suits, 2 Nashville Metro PD officers in uniform. Agent Patricia Torres led the group. 5'6", black hair pulled back, a face that betrayed absolutely nothing. "Kevin Brewer?" she said. Stepping into the conference room, Kevin didn't stand. He looked at me, something in his expression that I'd never seen before. Not anger, not defiance. Something smaller, something that recognized the walls were closing in and there was nowhere left to run. "Kevin Brewer. I'm Special Agent Patricia Torres with the FBI Nashville Field Office. You're under arrest for wire fraud and embezzlement under Title 18, United States Code, Section 1343. Please stand and place your hands behind your back." Kevin stood. Slowly. His legs seemed uncertain. One of the uniformed officers stepped forward with handcuffs. The click of metal against metal was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you." Kevin's hands were behind his back now, silver cuffs catching the fluorescent light. His blazer bunched at the shoulders. His coffee sat on the conference table, still steaming, a normal Friday coffee that would never be finished. They led him toward the door. The hallway parted. 45 employees watching their CFO of 20 years walk past in handcuffs. Danny Reeves stepped aside, face unreadable. The receptionist covered her mouth. The young estimator from accounting pressed against the wall, eyes wide. Kevin looked back at me as they led him through. One glance over his shoulder. Not angry, not pleading, just small. The man who'd stolen everything from me suddenly looked like nothing at all. A 58-year-old man in a rumpled blazer who'd run out of lies. I felt nothing. No triumph. No relief. Just cold clarity. Agent Torres turned to Tyler. "Tyler Dawson? We'd like you to come with us voluntarily to answer some questions regarding your involvement in fraudulent financial transactions at this company." Tyler stood. His legs barely held him. He wiped his face, looked at me one last time. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I didn't respond. What? The conference room emptied. The hallway slowly cleared. Employees drifted back to their desks in stunned silence. Danny appeared in the doorway. "Bill, you okay?" I looked around the room. Kevin's coffee, Tyler's phone, left on the table. The projector still glowing with the last invoice on screen. My folder of DNA reports open on the table. "Yeah, Danny. I'm okay. Take the crew to the Franklin job. Normal day. I'll address everyone Monday." Danny nodded once. He'd been with me 16 years. Knew when to ask questions and when to just do the job. He disappeared. I sat down at the head of the table. My table. My room. My company. Kevin's chair was pushed back at an angle, like he'd left in a hurry. Because he had. In handcuffs. My brother. My children's biological father. The man I'd trusted for 30 years. Gone. But I wasn't done. There was still Trish. And she was at home right now, cooking dinner, checking her phone, waiting for a text from Kevin that would never come. She didn't know he was in a holding cell. She didn't know Tyler was being questioned by federal agents. She didn't know that tonight, for the first time in 38 years, she'd be sleeping somewhere else. I picked up my phone. One message from Ray. Subject secured. "Nice work, Bill." One from Megan. "Is it done?" I typed back. "Kevin's in custody. Tyler's being questioned. Coming home now to deal with your mother." Her reply was immediate. "I'm here if you need me." "You did the right thing, Dad." I stood. gathered my documents, turned off the projector, and walked out of the conference room toward the parking lot, toward home, toward the woman who'd been lying to me since before our daughter was born. One down, one to go. I sat in my truck in the Dawson construction parking lot for 11 minutes after the FBI left. Engine running, heat blowing, December cold, pressing against the windows. My hands steady on the wheel, my mind already moving past the conference room toward what came next. At 10:23, I pulled out and drove home. The route from 12th Avenue South to Eastland Avenue takes 14 minutes. I'd driven it thousands of times. Past the Gulch, through 5 Points, up the hill into East Nashville, where the old craftsman houses sit under bare December trees. Today the drive felt different. Time had lost its rhythm. Everything moved in slow, deliberate frames. A man driving home to end his marriage. I pulled into the driveway at 6:43. The porch light was on. Through the kitchen window, the same window I'd looked through on October 10th when this all began, I could see Trish, moving between stove and counter. Friday meant shrimp and grits. One of my favorites. Make him feel loved. Cook his favorite meals. I grabbed the folder from the passenger seat. Walked up the steps. Opened the door. The house smelled like butter and garlic. Country music playing low from the kitchen speaker. Trish called out without turning around. "Hey, honey. Dinner's almost ready. Kevin texted earlier about coming by tomorrow, but I haven't heard back. Is he okay?" His name in her mouth. Casual. Easy. Like asking about the weather. I set the folder on the counter between the cutting board and a half-empty bottle of wine. Trish turned, wiping her hands on a towel, smiling. The smile faded when she saw my face. "Bill? What's wrong?" "Sit down, Patricia." She flinched. I never called her Patricia. She looked at the folder, back at me. Her hand tightened on the towel. I opened it. Pulled out the DNA report. Set it facing her. "This is a paternity test. 0% biological father to Megan and Tyler. Kevin is 99.97%. Her face collapsed. Not just shock. Something structural giving way behind her eyes. Like watching a building's supports fail before the walls follow. I placed the printed emails beside it. 3 of them. 1995. Last night was incredible. 96. Our daughter will be born next month. 2016. Tyler knows now. He'll keep quiet. Then surveillance photographs. Kevin and Trish entering the Hermitage Hotel. Room 304. Tuesday and Thursday. Different days. Same room. Clear. Undeniable. "Bill." She whispered my name. "Let me explain. It started as a mistake. One time. And then, 28 years isn't a mistake," I said. "It's a choice. Every day for 28 years you chose to lie. You let me believe. Megan and Tyler were mine. You let me pay for everything while you chose Kevin. You were always working. 70 hours a week. Always at the job site. I was alone. Kevin was there. He listened. I held up my hand. I worked those hours to build this life. This house. College funds. Retirement. Every hour I spent pouring concrete was for this family. You used that time to sleep with my brother." I pulled out the divorce papers. 23 pages. Set them beside everything else. Kevin was arrested this morning. FBI. Wire fraud. 2.3 million. Stolen over 12 years. He's in federal custody. Tyler's being questioned. Her legs buckled. She caught herself on the counter. "These are divorce papers. $95,000. 3% of marital assets. No contact order. You never come near me or Megan again. The alternative is Martin adds you as a co-defendant. 600,000 in transfers you benefited from. That's complicity, Patricia. That's federal prison." Silence. Tears falling but no sound. The kitchen clock ticked. Cornbread burning in the oven. Get out of my house. She didn't argue. Walked upstairs. Drawers opening. Suitcase zipper. 10 minutes. Came back with one bag. Standing in the doorway. Mascara, streaked. Looking at me like she wanted to say everything and nothing at once. I called a taxi. 6 minutes. We stood in silence. Her at the doorway. Me at the counter. 3 feet apart. 38 years between us. Headlights swept across the window at 8:15. Trish picked up her bag. Hand on the doorknob, she turned back. I'm sorry, Bill. I know. She walked out. Got in the taxi. Taillights moved down Eastland Avenue, turned left on Shelby, and disappeared. I stood in the doorway. Cold air rushing in. Christmas lights blinking across the street. Normal neighborhood. Normal night. I closed the door. Turned off the stove. The shrimp and grits sat half-finished. Pulled the burning cornbread from the oven. Turned off the speaker. Then I sat at the kitchen table. The same table where Megan had done homework, where Tyler opened Christmas presents, where Kevin drank my bourbon on Sunday nights and laughed at my jokes while sleeping with my wife. The house was silent. Completely. The first true silence in 38 years. No TV from the living room. No water running upstairs. No voice calling from the kitchen. Just silence. I sat there until midnight. Not thinking. Not crying. Not planning. Just sitting in the quiet and trying to figure out if it sounded like freedom or loneliness. I still don't know. The dominoes fell fast after that. Once you tip the first one, gravity does the rest. December 21st. Kevin's arraignment at the Howard H. Baker Jr. Federal Courthouse downtown. I didn't attend. Martin called at 11:14 with the summary. Kevin pleaded not guilty. The judge denied bail. Flight risk, the prosecutor argued. Access to hidden financial accounts. History of deception spanning decades. Kevin's attorney, a man named Douglas Webb from a midtown firm, objected. The judge disagreed. Kevin would remain in federal custody at the Metro Davidson County Detention Facility until trial, scheduled for March. Wire fraud. Bank fraud. Embezzlement. Each count carrying up to 20 years. My brother was sleeping on a steel bunk in a 6x9 cell. 2 months ago, he'd been sleeping with my wife at the Hermitage Hotel. Room 304. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Tyler's situation resolved faster. His attorney negotiated through the holidays. By January 8th, the deal was done. Tyler Dawson would plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Sentence recommendation: 18 months at FCI Manchester, a minimum security federal facility in eastern Kentucky. $340,000 in restitution. 3 years of supervised release following incarceration. 18 months. For 4 years of espionage inside my company. For 8 years of lying to my face. For helping plan the theft of everything I'd built. 18 months. Felt like nothing. But Martin explained the math. Tyler cooperated fully, provided testimony against Kevin. Surrendered his phone, his laptop, every email. His cooperation would add 3 to 5 years to Kevin's eventual sentence. My son's betrayal became the weapon that buried my brother deeper. I didn't know how to feel about that. So I didn't feel anything. Trish signed the divorce papers on December 28th. 3 days after Christmas. Her attorney, a woman named Rachel Goodwin, tried to negotiate better terms. Martin shut it down with one sentence. We have documented evidence of your client's complicity in financial fraud. These terms are generous. Trish signed. $95,000. 3% of 31 years of marriage. A lifetime no-contact order. She moved to Memphis the following week. Her sister Linda had a spare bedroom. I didn't ask for details. Didn't want them. The Nashville construction community is small. News travels through job sites like water through cracks in a foundation. By the first week of January, every general contractor, subcontractor, and supplier in Davidson County knew what had happened at Dawson Construction. They didn't know the personal details. Not the affair. Not the children. Just the embezzlement. The arrest. The FBI. Kevin's name became toxic overnight. 3 projects he'd personally managed relationships for called me directly. "We want you to know, we're staying with Dawson," they each said in their own way. "This doesn't change our trust in you, Bill." I thanked them. Meant it. But trust. That word had lost its meaning somewhere between October and December. I promoted Danny Reeves to operations manager on January 10th. $27 an hour, plus a 5% profit-sharing agreement. Danny had earned it 16 times over. He shook my hand in my office, his calloused palm firm against mine. "I won't let you down, Bill." "I know you won't, Danny." Martin filed the civil suit on January 15th. $2.3 million in damages against Kevin Brewer. Likely uncollectible. Kevin's assets were frozen, seized, or hidden behind legal structures that would take years to untangle. But the suit went on public record. Another domino. Another piece of documentation that told the world what my brother had done. That same week, I sat with Martin and a trust attorney named Howard Vance in a third-floor office overlooking the Cumberland River. We transferred Dawson Construction, its assets, its contracts, its equipment, and its accounts into an irrevocable trust. Megan Dawson Harris, sole beneficiary. Frank Dawson, trustee until his passing. Then Jake Harris, as successor. I signed the papers at 2:43 on a Thursday afternoon. The pen felt heavy. Not because of the legal weight, but because of what it represented. I was giving my life's work to my daughter. My only daughter. The one person in my family who hadn't lied to me. Tyler's processing happened on January 22nd. The day he reported to FCI Manchester to begin his 18-month sentence. I didn't go. Couldn't. Didn't know what I'd say if I saw him in that parking lot. Walking through those doors. Disappearing into a federal facility because of choices he'd made inside my company. Megan went. She told me about it that evening over the phone. Her voice was careful, controlled. The way she spoke, when she was trying not to cry. "He looked small, Dad." Standing there with his bag. He asked if you'd ever talk to him again. I told him I didn't know. What did he say? He said he understood. Then he walked in. Silence on the line. The sound of Megan breathing. Of me breathing. I went to the garage that night, stood at my workbench, turned on the overhead light. The space smelled like sawdust and motor oil. My tools hung on pegboard walls, everything in its place, everything where I'd put it. On the shelf above the bench sat a photo I'd forgotten about. Tyler at 12 years old. Standing at this same bench. Safety glasses too big for his face, holding a piece of pine he'd just cut on the table saw. His first straight cut, grinning like he'd won the lottery. I'd taught him that. Stood behind him, guided his hands, showed him how to read the grain, how to respect the blade, how to measure twice, build once. I picked up the photo, looked at that 12-year-old face, the gap-toothed grin, the oversized glasses. My son. Except he wasn't. Except he was. Except I didn't know anymore. I set the photo face down on the shelf. Didn't throw it away. Couldn't. But couldn't look at it either. I'd erase them. All of them. Kevin behind bars. Tyler in federal prison. Trish gone to Memphis. My company secured. My assets protected. My will rewritten. Everything I'd planned. Everything I'd executed with precision and patience and cold determination. It was done. I'd won. So why did victory feel exactly like grief? Christmas morning. I woke at 5:42 to absolute silence. No sound from anywhere in the house. No coffee maker timer clicking on in the kitchen. No Trish humming carols while wrapping last-minute presents. No footsteps overhead, just the furnace cycling, the refrigerator humming, and the faint sound of rain on the roof. Nashville doesn't get snow often. This year, it didn't even try. I lay in bed for 20 minutes, staring at the ceiling fan that hadn't moved since I turned it off in October. Trish always wanted it running, even in winter. Said she liked the white noise. I'd left it off since she left. The stillness felt more honest. At 6:15, I got up, made coffee. Black. Stood at the kitchen counter drinking it, while the sky outside turned from black to gray to a pale, washed-out blue. The house was clean. I'd been keeping it that way. Dishes washed after every meal, floors swept, counters wiped. Something about maintaining order when everything else had fallen apart. I drove to Megan's house in Germantown at 9:30. She and Jake had moved into a 2-bedroom Craftsman on 5th Avenue North 6 months ago. Jake had painted the front door red. Megan had planted mums in the window boxes that were brown and dead now in December. But in spring they'd come back. Things do that. Come back. Frank's truck was already in the driveway when I pulled up. He'd driven from Murfreesboro, 45 minutes, on Interstate 24. At 71, with hands that ached in cold weather, he'd made the trip without complaint. Megan met me at the door. Green sweater. Hair down. She hugged me long and tight, the way she'd been hugging me since November. Every hug now carried something extra, something that said I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. The house was warm. Small tree in the corner with white lights. Jake had a fire going. Frank sat in the armchair by the window, a cup of coffee balanced on his knee. He looked up when I walked in, smiled. But I noticed what I'd been noticing for weeks. The way his skin hung looser, the gray tinge beneath his color, the way he moved slower, getting out of chairs. He was 71, but suddenly looked older. Merry Christmas, son. His voice was strong, though. Whatever was happening to his body hadn't reached his voice yet. Merry Christmas, Dad. 4 people around a table meant for 6. That's what Christmas looked like now. Jake cooked. Ham, green beans, mashed potatoes, rolls from scratch. Simple. Good. We said grace. Frank led it. Short and plain, the way he always did. Lord, thank you for this food and this family. The real one. Amen. Nobody mentioned Kevin. Nobody mentioned Trish. Nobody mentioned Tyler. The empty chairs spoke loud enough. After dinner, Jake and Megan cleaned up while Frank and I sat in the living room. The fire crackling, rain still tapping the windows. Frank reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. White, sealed, my name written on the front in his careful carpenter's print. Don't open this now, he said. Save it for when you need it. You'll know when. I took the envelope, held it, looked at my father's face, the deep lines around his eyes, the age spots on his temples, the steady gaze that had never once wavered in 63 years of being my dad. What is it? Just something I want you to have. When the time comes. He squeezed my forearm. Not yet. But soon. I nodded. Put the envelope in my jacket pocket. Didn't ask more. Frank wasn't a man who explained things before they were ready to be explained. Later, while Jake was in the kitchen boxing up leftovers, I walked through the living room looking at Megan's bookshelves, photos mixed with novels. Her wedding picture. Jake's family in Knoxville. A frame I recognized. Tyler's high school graduation. All 4 of us. Me, Trish, Megan, Tyler. Standing in front of the football field at Hillsborough High. Everyone smiling. Everyone lying, except Megan and me. I picked it up, looked at Tyler's 18-year-old face. 2 months before Kevin told him the truth on that fishing trip. The last photo of him, where he was still innocent. Where the lie hadn't reached him yet. I set it back. Face forward. Didn't hide it. That wasn't my call. This was Megan's house. At 7:15, Megan pulled me aside. The hallway near the bathroom, Jake hovering behind her. Both of them with that expression people wear when they're about to say something big. "Dad," she said. "I have something to tell you." She took my hands. Her fingers warm and slightly trembling. "Jake and I are having a baby. Due in June. We found out in November, but I wanted to wait. I wanted today to be the day you heard." I looked at her face. 30 years old. My daughter. The only one who'd stood by me when everything fell apart. And now, she was going to be a mother. Something broke open in my chest. Not the way things had been breaking since October. Not the cracking and collapsing and hollowing out. Something different. Something expanding instead of contracting. I pulled her into my arms, held her, and cried. Not long, not dramatically, just tears I didn't try to stop, running down my face into her hair while she held me back. "You're going to be a grandfather," she whispered. "A real one. The kind who shows up." "I will," I said. "I promise." Jake shook my hand after. Firm. Warm. His eyes red too. Frank, from the living room, raised his coffee cup in a silent toast. His eyes bright and wet. A baby. In June. Something new growing while everything old was still burning. Life doesn't wait for you to finish grieving before it offers you the next thing. It just keeps moving forward whether you're ready or not. I drove home at 9:30. The rain had stopped. Nashville's skyline glowed through thin clouds, Broadway's neon visible from the interstate, the city alive and unconcerned with one man's ruin and rebuilding. I parked in my driveway, sat for a moment. The house dark and quiet ahead of me. Frank's envelope in my pocket. Megan's news in my chest. Tyler's photo on her bookshelf. I wasn't healed. The kitchen table was still empty. The bed was still too wide. The silence was still loud. But something had shifted. Something fragile and unnamed, like the first warmth of March after a long winter. Not spring yet, just the promise of it. I went inside. Didn't turn on the lights. Stood in the hallway and let the quiet settle around me. Then I went upstairs, lay down, and for the first time in weeks, fell asleep before midnight. February 14th. Valentine's Day. A holiday I'd never cared much about, and now had no reason to acknowledge at all. I was in my home office at 2:31 in the afternoon, reviewing a material estimate for the Grand Ole Opry Hotel Annex project Danny had landed us in January. Coffee, going cold beside my laptop. Rain drumming the window. Normal Tuesday. My phone rang at 2:47. Vanderbilt University Medical Center. The same number that had called me in October. The number that started everything. "Mr. Dawson? This is Dr. Kieran in the emergency department. Your father, Frank Dawson, was brought in by ambulance approximately 40 minutes ago. Massive myocardial infarction. I need you to come in immediately." I was in my truck in under a minute. The drive from East Nashville to Vanderbilt takes 12 minutes. I made it in 8. Running one red light on Shelby Avenue. Not caring. The same parking garage I'd used in October. The same elevator. The same hallway. But this time I was running. This time, my hands were shaking. This time the fluorescent lights overhead felt like they were pressing down instead of just humming indifferently. A nurse met me at the 4th-floor desk. "Mr. Dawson? I'm Lisa. Come with me." She walked fast. I walked faster. Down a corridor that smelled like antiseptic and plastic. And something else. Something final. Dr. Kieran stood outside a room at the end of the hall. Young. 35 maybe. Dark hair, kind eyes. The expression of a man who delivered bad news more often than he wanted to. "Mr. Dawson, I'm sorry. Your father suffered a massive cardiac event at his home in Murfreesboro. Paramedics performed CPR for 18 minutes. They restored a heartbeat in the ambulance and brought him here. But the damage was extensive. He went into cardiac arrest again at 2:22. He paused. We worked on him for 31 minutes. I'm sorry. We were unable to revive him. The words entered my body like cold water, filling the spaces between my ribs, behind my eyes, in my throat. Can I see him? Of course. Take as long as you need. The room was small, quiet. Machines turned off. The lines on the monitors flat and still. And Frank, my father, 71 years old, lying on the hospital bed with his eyes closed, his face relaxed, peaceful in the way that only absence can be. I pulled a chair beside the bed, sat down, took his hand. Still warm. The calluses still there from 6 decades of carpentry. The knuckles swollen from arthritis. The same hand that had guided mine on a saw at age 9, that had gripped my shoulder in his workshop in November and said, "I'll be right beside you, son." I sat there for an hour, maybe longer. Didn't speak, didn't cry, just held his hand and tried to memorize the weight of it. The texture, the silence of a room where someone you love has just stopped existing. Memories came uninvited. Frank teaching me to read a tape measure in his garage. First day, 1970. I was 8. Frank helping me load my first truck when I started Dawson Construction in 93, standing in the driveway, proud and trying to hide it. Frank at my wedding, shaking Trish's hand. Something uncertain in his expression that I now understood had been there from the beginning. Frank in his workshop in November, sliding his address book across the bench. I've been watching that boy steal from you for 20 years. Frank on the phone. December 20th. 7:12 in the morning. The last time I heard his voice, strong and sure. Give them hell, son. I'm proud of you. Your mother would be too. That's where my memory of his voice would stop. Those words. That morning. The last time he sounded like the man who'd raised me. Megan arrived at 4:15. Jake behind her. She walked into the room, saw Frank, and made a sound I'd never heard from her before. Something between a gasp and a cry. She knelt beside the bed, pressed her forehead to Frank's hand, whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she stood, came to me, put her arms around my head where I sat in the chair, and held me against her belly where her baby was growing. 5 months along now, life continuing inside her while death filled this room. I'm sorry, Dad. She was crying. I'm so sorry. I couldn't speak. Just pressed my face against her and let the tears come. Not the controlled, brief tears of Christmas. These were something else. Deep. Wrenching. The kind that come from a place you didn't know you had until it breaks open. Frank was gone. The man who'd stood by me when everything collapsed. The man who'd kept his suspicions quiet for 20 years because he'd promised my mother. The man who'd handed me an envelope on Christmas and said, "Save it for when you need it." The envelope. I reached into my jacket. It was still there. I'd been carrying it since December 25th, moving it from jacket to jacket without opening it, waiting for the moment he'd described. You'll know when. I knew now. My hands trembled as I opened it. A single sheet of paper. Frank's careful carpenter's print. Blue ink. Son. Whatever happens after I'm gone, remember this. The foundation is what matters. Not the walls. Not the roof. Not the paint, or the trim, or the fixtures. The foundation. That's what holds everything up when the storms come. Your foundation is solid, Bill. It always has been. You built it with your own hands, and your own sweat, and your own honest heart. Kevin couldn't crack it. Trish couldn't crack it. Nobody can. Build on it. Build something new. Build something real. I love you. I'm proud of the man you are. Mom is too. Dad. I read it twice. 3 times. Holding the paper in both hands, while tears blurred the words, and Megan's hand rested steady on my shoulder. The funeral was 3 days later. West End Baptist Church. The same church where Trish and I had married 38 years ago. 32 people in the pews. Megan and Jake, in the front row. Danny Reeves and his wife behind them. A handful of Frank's old construction buddies from Murfreesboro, neighbors, friends. Kevin was not there. He was in federal custody awaiting trial. Tyler was not there. He was in FCI Manchester, 7 months into his sentence. Trish was not there. She was in Memphis, bound by a no-contact order and her own shame. The pastor read from Ecclesiastes. A time to build up and a time to break down. I thought about how much of both I'd done in 4 months. After the burial at Woodlawn Cemetery, I sat in my truck in the parking lot. Megan stood outside my window, her hand on the glass, palm flat. I pressed mine against it from inside. Same size now. Father and daughter. The only family I had left that mattered. I'll be okay, I said through the window. I know, she said. But you don't have to be okay today. I drove home. Empty house. Empty rooms. Frank's letter on the kitchen table where I'd set it after the hospital. His words in blue ink. The foundation is what matters. Build on it. I went to bed fully clothed. Stared at the dark ceiling. And for the first time since this began, I didn't know if I could keep going. But Frank's voice was there. Somewhere in the silence. Quiet and steady. The way it always was. Build on it, son. Build something real. March came like something I hadn't asked for. The days getting longer whether I wanted them to or not. The bare trees on Eastland Avenue starting to bud. Nashville thawing. The world moving forward while I stayed still. For the first 2 weeks after Frank's funeral, I barely left the house. Megan came over every day. Sometimes she brought food. Sometimes she just sat with me in the living room, not talking, her hand on my arm, her belly growing visible beneath her sweater. 5 months. Then 6. Life continuing inside her regardless of everything else. Jake mowed my lawn. Fixed a leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. Brought over a space heater when my furnace cycled off one night and I didn't notice because I was sitting in the garage staring at Frank's photo on the shelf. The one of Tyler at 12. Still face down. Still there. Danny ran the company. Called me once a day with updates. Never pushed. Never asked when I was coming back. Just kept things moving. The Franklin custom home was ahead of schedule. The 12th Avenue renovation was under budget. Dawson Construction ran itself because I'd built it to run that way. Solid systems. Good people. Frank's philosophy. Build the foundation right, and the structure holds on its own. Late March. A Wednesday evening. Megan drove me to West End Community Church. A support group met in the basement every Wednesday at 7. Betrayed spouses. 8 plastic chairs in a circle. Fluorescent lights. Bad coffee. A facilitator named Ruth who was 63, same as me. Divorced after 30 years, when she found out her husband had a second family in Knoxville. I sat in that circle for 3 weeks and said nothing. Just listened. A woman whose husband embezzled her inheritance. A man whose wife had been sleeping with their neighbor for 11 years. Another man whose adult children sided with his ex and cut him off. Stories that sounded like mine. Pain that looked like mine. People who understood without needing explanation. 4th week. I spoke. My brother stole my wife, my children, and my money. My father died from the stress of watching it happen. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Silence. Then Ruth nodded. You survive, she said simply. That's enough for now. Survive. I could do that. I'd been doing it for 5 months. April. I started running. Not because anyone told me to. Because one morning I woke at 4:45, and my body felt like a cage. I needed to move. Needed air. Needed to be somewhere besides this house. Percy Warner Park. The Mossy Ridge Trail. 3.2 miles through old-growth forest. Dark before dawn. The path barely visible. My lungs burning after the first quarter mile because 63 years of construction work doesn't prepare you for running uphill. But I kept going, one foot after another. The way Frank taught me to work. Steady, consistent. Don't stop until it's done. 3 mornings a week. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. By the end of April, I was doing the full loop without stopping. 5:45 in the morning. The forest quiet except for birdsong and my own breathing. Those 30 minutes became the only time my mind went silent. No memories. No anger. No grief. Just feet on dirt and air in lungs, and the world reduced to something simple. May. Dawson Construction landed the Grand Ole Opry Hotel Annex renovation, $1.2 million. Largest single contract in company history. Danny called me at the office, voice barely contained. "Bill, we got it. Official letter came today. Start date June 1st. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. Not the cold satisfaction of revenge. Actual pride. The kind that comes from building something real and having people recognize it. I went back to work full-time the following week. Not because the grief was gone. It wasn't. Frank's absence sat in my chest like a stone. But the stone was smoother now. Easier to carry. And work helped. The rhythm of it. The problems to solve. The tangible progress of watching a building take shape. The woodworking started on a Thursday evening in late May. I'd been standing in the garage staring at Frank's old hand planes, his chisels, his dovetail jig. Tools he'd given me over the years. Tools I hadn't touched since his death. I picked up a chisel. Ran my thumb along the edge. Still sharp. Frank maintained his tools with religious discipline. A sharp blade is a safe blade, he'd say. A dull one will fight you. I started with a simple project. A crib. For Megan's baby. Due in 3 weeks. Oak wood. Sourced from a lumber yard in Lebanon that Frank had used for 40 years. The grain tight and clean. I measured twice. Cut once. Frank's voice in every step. Read the grain. Respect the blade. Let the wood tell you what it wants to be. I worked on it every evening after dinner. 2 hours. Sometimes 3. Sanding by hand because Frank never trusted power sanders for finish work. They take too much, he'd say. You want to reveal the grain, not erase it. The joints fitted without nails. Mortise and tenon. Frank's technique. Learned in his garage when I was 14. Passed down now into a crib that would hold his great-grandchild. On May 28th, I stood back and looked at it. Finished. Sanded smooth. The oak, glowing warm, under the garage lights. 4 rails. 4 legs. A solid bottom. Something a baby could sleep in safely. Something built with hands that had learned from hands that were gone now. I ran my palm across the headboard, felt the grain beneath my fingers. And for the first time since October, I felt something that wasn't grief or rage or emptiness. Peace. Just a moment of it. Quiet and unexpected. Like finding a warm spot of sunlight on a cold floor. Megan came over the next day to see it. She ran her fingers along the same places I had. Her eyes wet. Dad, it's beautiful. Grandpa would have loved this. He taught me everything I know. She hugged me, her belly pressing between us. The baby kicked. I felt it against my ribs. New life, demanding attention, demanding space, in a world that kept turning. Then on June 1st, Tyler's letter arrived. Postmarked FCI Manchester, Kentucky. 4 pages. Handwritten. The handwriting smaller and more careful than I remembered. Like someone writing slowly on purpose. Thinking about every word. I set it on my workbench. Beside the finished crib. Beside Frank's chisels. Evidence of the past. And the future sitting side by side. I held it for 3 days before I opened it. Sunday morning. June 4th. I opened the letter on the back porch with a cup of coffee, and the early sun warming the boards beneath my feet. Nashville in June smells like cut grass and warm concrete and honeysuckle climbing someone's fence. Birds in the oak tree. A lawnmower running somewhere on the next street. Peaceful morning. The kind of setting you'd choose for something you know will hurt. The envelope was plain white. FCI Manchester stamped in the upper left corner. My name and address in Tyler's handwriting. Smaller than I remembered. More careful. Each letter formed with deliberate effort, like someone relearning how to communicate after years of saying only what was convenient. 4 pages. Blue ballpoint pen. Some words crossed out and rewritten. The margins uneven. Lines drifting slightly downhill, the way handwriting does when there's no ruled paper. He'd written on blank sheets. Commissary stock. Probably. The letter began without greeting. No, dear Dad. No, Mr. Dawson. Just a sentence. I don't know what to call you. I don't think I've earned the right to call you Dad. But you're the only father I've ever known, and the only one worth knowing. So I'll just start talking. I found out on a fishing trip. June 2016. I was 18. Kevin took me to Dale Hollow Lake for a weekend. Just the two of us. I thought it was uncle-nephew bonding. Something cool. He waited until the second night. We were sitting by the fire. He'd given me 2 beers. I thought that was the big secret. Then he told me. He said my mom and him had been together before I was born. That he was my biological father. That Bill, meaning you, didn't know. That it was better this way. That you were a good man, but that blood mattered. That I should know where I really came from. I was 18. Angry at the world the way 18-year-olds are. And suddenly, I had a reason. You weren't my real dad. Everything felt like a lie. Not your lie. Everyone else's lie. But somehow, I turned that anger toward you. I read that paragraph twice. Then continued. Kevin made it make sense. He's good at that. Good at making wrong things sound reasonable. He said you'd gotten the easy life. The company. The house. The family. He'd gotten nothing. And we, me and Megan, were his. His blood. His legacy. He made it sound like you owed us something. Like we were just collecting what was fair. That was poison. And I drank it willingly. I know that now. Nobody forced me. Kevin handed me the cup, and I drank and kept drinking for 8 years. When I started at Dawson Construction in 2020, Kevin asked me to send him weekly updates, business information, financials, client lists. He said it was because he needed it for his CFO work and the company systems were too slow. That sounded reasonable for about 2 weeks. After that, I knew what I was doing. I was spying. I was choosing him over you. Every Friday at 5 o'clock, I chose Kevin. The group chat started in 2022. The plan to buy the company came together in 2023. I was part of it from the beginning. Not just following orders. Contributing. I researched the shell company structure. I found Robert Chen through a business school contact. I calculated the undervaluation that would make the deal look legitimate to you. I told myself it wasn't stealing. That the company would still exist. That I'd still be working there. That you'd get 1.8 million. And retire happy. I told myself you'd never know the difference. That was a lie I told myself so I could sleep at night. I knew it was theft. I knew it would hurt you. I chose money over the man who raised me. Over the man who taught me to use a table saw at 12 years old. Over the man who drove me to baseball practice every Tuesday and Thursday for 6 years and never once missed a game. I stopped reading. Breathed. The coffee had gone cold. The sun was higher now, casting sharp shadows across the porch. A cardinal landed on the fence, red against green, stayed for 3 seconds, then flew. The letter continued. In here, I've had time to think. That's mostly what you do. Think and wait. I'm 5 months sober. I didn't tell you I had a drinking problem, because admitting that would have meant admitting why I was drinking. I started in 2022. when the plan got serious, when the guilt got heavy enough that I needed something to make it quiet. I go to AA meetings in the chapel on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have a sponsor, Frank. Same name as Grandpa. I didn't choose him for that reason, but I think about it every time he talks. I'm tutoring 3 guys for their GED. Math and English. Teaching is harder than I expected, but it helps. It makes the days mean something. I see a therapist every 2 weeks. Dr. Amara. She specializes in what she calls moral injury, the damage you do to yourself by acting against your own values. That's what happened to me. I acted against everything you taught me, and the damage wasn't just to you. It was to me too. I broke something inside myself that I'm trying to fix. The last page was shorter, the handwriting tighter, like he was running out of things to say, and also couldn't stop. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. What I did wasn't a mistake. It was years of choices. Every Friday email, every lie, every time I sat in your truck and called you Dad while knowing I was helping Kevin steal from you. That was me. Not Kevin. Me. But if you ever want to know that I finally understand what I destroyed, if you ever want to see for yourself whether I'm different or just saying words, you know where I am. FCI Manchester. Visiting hours Saturday and Sunday. 8 to 3. I'm not asking you to come. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know that I see it now. All of it. The man you were to me, and the monster I was to you. I don't deserve your name. But I'm going to spend whatever's left of my life trying to earn it. Tyler. I set the letter on my knee. The porch was quiet. The cardinal was gone. The lawnmower had stopped. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed. High and clear and uncomplicated. I read the letter again. All 4 pages. Slower this time. Looking for performance. Looking for manipulation. Looking for Kevin's fingerprints on the words. The careful coaching. The strategic phrasing. I didn't find it. Maybe it was there, and I couldn't see it. Maybe Tyler had learned to lie so well that even his honesty looked like honesty. Or maybe this was real. A 26-year-old man sitting in a federal prison cell, writing with a ballpoint pen on blank paper, trying to tell the truth for the first time in 8 years. I didn't know. Couldn't know. Not from 4 pages. I folded the letter, carried it inside, walked upstairs to my office, opened the desk drawer where I kept the things that mattered and the things that hurt. Frank's letter, in blue ink. The DNA reports. Megan's ultrasound photo from her 12-week appointment. And now Tyler's 4 pages from a prison in Kentucky. Everything I'd lost and everything I might still find. All in one drawer. I closed it gently. Not ready to decide. Not ready to reply. But not ready to throw it away, either. The phone rang at 3:47 in the morning. June 8th. I was asleep for once. Actually asleep. Not lying in the dark thinking. The sound pulled me up from somewhere deep and quiet. Jake's name on the screen. I answered before the second ring. Bill. His voice was fast. Breathless. Not scared. Excited. It's time. We're at Vanderbilt. Megan's asking for you. I was out of bed before he finished the sentence. Jeans. Sweatshirt. Boots by the door. Keys from the hook. The house dark behind me as I pulled the front door shut. 3:47 in the morning. Nashville was empty. The streets wet from overnight rain, reflecting streetlights in long smeared lines. I drove the same route I'd driven in October. Eastland, to Shelby, to 21st to the medical center. Past the same buildings. The same intersections. The same parking garage, where I'd sat in my truck after Dr. Patel's call and felt my world crack open. 8 months ago. Same hospital. Same man. But not the same. Not anymore. I parked on the 3rd level. Took the elevator to the 4th floor. Labor and delivery. The hallway was quiet at 4:15 in the morning, soft lighting. The distant sound of a monitor beeping somewhere. A nurse at the station looked up, smiled. "Mr. Dawson, your daughter's in room 412. Your son-in-law is in the waiting area." I found Jake in a small room with blue vinyl chairs and a muted television showing infomercials. He stood when he saw me. His face was a mix of terror and joy that I recognized from 30 years ago, from 2 deliveries I'd been present for, deliveries I thought were mine. "How is she?" I asked. "Strong. Contractions are 4 minutes apart. Doctor says maybe 2 more hours. They let me stay until she hit transition, and then she kicked me out. Said I was hovering." I almost smiled. "Sounds like Megan." Jake ran his hands through his hair. "I don't know what to do out here. Just wait? Just wait. That's all we can do." So we waited. Jake paced. Saturday. Stood. Paced again. I sat still. Hands on my knees. Eyes on the clock. The minutes moving slow and fast simultaneously, the way they do when something irreversible is happening on the other side of a wall. Jake talked to fill the silence. About the nursery. The yellow paint they'd chosen. The rocking chair his mother sent from Knoxville. The stack of children's books Megan had been collecting since January. He talked about being scared. About not knowing if he'd be a good father. "You'll be fine," I said. "You love her. You're honest with her. That's the foundation. Everything else, you figure out as you go." He looked at me. Nodded. "Thanks, Bill." At 6:31, a nurse appeared in the doorway. Big smile. Scrubs patterned with small yellow ducks. "Dad and Grandpa? It's time. You can come back now." We followed her down the corridor. Room 412. The door half open. The sound of something I hadn't heard in 30 years. A newborn, crying. That particular sharp, high-pitched protest against the cold, bright world. Jake went in first. I heard Megan laugh. Exhausted and joyful. Then Jake's voice cracking on something I couldn't make out. I stood in the hallway for 10 seconds. My hand on the doorframe. Breathing. The last time I'd walked into a room in this hospital, my father was lying still and silent and gone. Now, on the same floor, 4 doors down, my daughter was holding new life. I stepped inside. Megan was propped against the pillows. Hair damp. Face pale and flushed at the same time. Eyes bright, with something I can only describe as fierce. She looked like a woman who'd just done the hardest thing in the world and won. In her arms, wrapped in a blue and white striped blanket, was the smallest person I'd ever seen. "Dad." She looked up at me, tears already falling. "Come here. Meet your grandson." I crossed the room. Stood beside the bed. Looked down. 7 pounds 2 ounces. Red face, wrinkled, eyes squeezed shut. A dark patch of hair. Tiny fists curled against his chest. Mouth open slightly, making small sounds that weren't quite crying anymore. More like commentary. Opinions about the temperature and the light, and the general inconvenience of being born. He was perfect. "His name," Megan said. She was looking at me with an expression I'll carry for the rest of my life. "We chose his name months ago, but I wanted to tell you, in person." She lifted him slightly toward me. "Dad, this is William Frank Harris. Named after the 2 best men I've ever known. William. My name. Frank. My father's name. Given to this 7-pound boy by a daughter who'd chosen me when she didn't have to. Who'd stood beside me when everything fell apart. Who'd named her firstborn son after a man in a federal prison cell denied as father, and a man buried in Woodlawn Cemetery claimed as grandfather. Something broke open in my chest. Not the way things had been breaking for 8 months. Not cracking. Not collapsing. Blooming. Expanding. Filling spaces I'd thought were permanently empty. "Do you want to hold him?" Megan asked. I reached down, slid my hands beneath the blanket, lifted him. Careful. Steady. The way you hold something you've been waiting for without knowing it. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. So light. So warm. His head fit in my palm. His body curled against my chest like he'd been designed to fit there. I held him close. Felt his heartbeat. Fast and steady. A small engine running strong. And I cried. Not brief. Not controlled. Tears falling free down my face onto the blue and white blanket. While my grandson slept against my chest, and my daughter smiled, and her husband put his arm around her. And somewhere in the silence, I heard Frank's voice. The foundation is what matters. Build on it. I held him for 20 minutes. Maybe longer. Megan dozed. Jake sat beside her, his hand on her arm. The room was quiet, except for the baby's breathing, and the machines keeping soft rhythm, and the sound of morning arriving through the window. At 7:40, I placed William back in Megan's arms. She stirred, smiled without opening her eyes. He's beautiful, Megan, I said. You did good. Thanks, Dad, she whispered. For being here. I kissed her forehead. Shook Jake's hand. Walked out of the room. Down the hallway. Past the nurse's station. Into the elevator. Through the parking garage. I sat in my truck. The sun was up now. Full morning. Gold light on the buildings. The Cumberland River visible from the upper level, catching the sunrise in long orange streaks. 8 months ago, I'd walked into this hospital looking for answers about what I'd lost. Blood types. DNA. The truth about 38 years of lies. And now, I was walking out holding something I hadn't expected to find. Not answers. Something better. A beginning. 7 pounds. 2 ounces of beginning. Named after me and my father. I started the engine, pulled out of the garage into the Nashville morning. The city waking up around me. Traffic building on 21st Avenue. Coffee shops opening. People walking to work. I drove home with the windows down. The June air warm and sweet. And for the first time in 8 months, I felt like the man behind the wheel wasn't broken, wasn't empty, wasn't defined by what had been taken from him. He was a grandfather. And that was enough. 3 weeks after William was born, I drove to Kentucky. FCI Manchester sits off a 2-lane highway between Daniel Boone National Forest and nothing. The parking lot was half empty on a Tuesday morning. I'd left Nashville at 5, watched the sun come up over Cookeville, and pulled into visitor processing at 8:15. They took my license, my belt, my watch, gave me a plastic number on a lanyard. I sat in a molded chair in a room that smelled like floor wax and instant coffee and waited for my son. Tyler came through the steel door at 8:43. Orange jumpsuit. Hair shorter than I'd ever seen it. He'd lost weight, maybe 15 pounds, but his shoulders were straight. He sat across from me at a bolted-down table and folded his hands like a man who'd practiced being still. We had 12 minutes. That's what they gave us. 12 minutes to bridge 26 years of raising him, 10 months of silence, 4 pages of a letter I never answered, and every question neither of us knew how to ask. I spoke first. I'm not forgiving you. Not yet. But I see you trying. He nodded. Swallowed once. His eyes were wet, but he didn't look away. I'm going to earn my name back, he said. However long it takes. I didn't tell him it wasn't his name to earn. I didn't tell him it was. I just looked at him, really looked, and saw the kid who used to hand me nails from a coffee can at the job site. Somewhere underneath the jumpsuit and the bad decisions and the man Kevin had tried to turn him into, that kid was still breathing. The guard called time. Tyler stood. I stood. We didn't hug. But I put my hand flat on the table between us, and he put his hand next to mine, close enough to feel the warmth, not quite touching. It was enough. For now, it was enough. August came slow and golden. Nashville in summer is a steam bath. But I'd learned to love the early mornings. 5:30, porch coffee, the cicadas winding up before the heat settled in. William was 8 weeks old by then. Megan brought him over 3 times a week, sometimes 4, and I'd hold him on the porch swing while she slept on the couch inside. That boy had Jake's nose and Megan's dark hair, and when he wrapped his fingers around my thumb, he gripped like he was holding rebar. I finished the bookshelf on a Saturday. White oak. Same as the crib. Mortise and tenon joints, no screws, no nails Frank's way. I'd started it in July. Working an hour each evening after the crews went home. Sanded it 3 times. Applied 4 coats of Danish oil until the grain glowed like honey in afternoon light. Megan ran her hand along the top shelf when I brought it to the nursery. "It's perfect," she said. I set it against the wall next to the crib and stepped back. A bookshelf and a crib, both built with the same hands, the same tools, the same lessons my father taught me in a garage that doesn't exist anymore except in the things I make. That evening I sat on the porch and watched the sun drop behind the Nashville skyline. 10 months. In 10 months I'd lost a wife, a brother, a son, a father, and 38 years of what I thought was real. In 10 months I'd gained a grandson, a daughter who chose me when she didn't have to, and something I still don't have a proper word for, maybe peace, maybe just the absence of pretending. People ask me what I learned. They want a lesson wrapped in a bow, something clean enough to put on a coffee mug. But life doesn't work that way. What I know is this: the foundation is the only thing that matters. You can frame a house in a week. You can hang drywall, lay tile, paint every wall the prettiest color money can buy. But if the foundation is cracked, if it was poured on a lie, on shifting ground, on someone else's agenda, the whole thing comes down. Maybe not today. Maybe not in 10 years. But it comes down. I built my life on a foundation I didn't pour. 38 years on someone else's concrete. And when it cracked, everything above it fell. Every memory, every holiday, every bedtime story and birthday candle. But God gives you hands for a reason. Not to hold on to what's broken to build again. And this time, I poured my own foundation. Level. True. On ground I chose. With people who chose me back. I'm not the same man who walked into Vanderbilt last October for a knee surgery he never got. That man trusted without verifying. Loved without boundaries. Gave without counting. I still believe in those things. Trust, love, generosity. But now I believe in them with my eyes open. God doesn't ask us to be blind. He asks us to be honest. With others and with ourselves. Tyler will come home in 8 months. I don't know what that looks like yet. Forgiveness isn't a single decision. It's a daily practice. Like prayer. Like showing up to a job site when your body aches and the weather's bad. Some days I'll have it in me. Some days I won't. But I'll keep showing up. And William will grow up knowing the truth. All of it. Because the worst thing anyone ever did to me was decide I didn't deserve to know what was real. I won't pass that down. Not to my grandson. Not to anyone. God willing. The foundation holds this time. If you've been through something like this, if you've discovered that the life you were living wasn't the life you thought, I want to hear your story. Leave it in the comments. And if this meant something to you, subscribe. Not for me. For the next person who needs to know they're not alone. Because you're not. I promise you that. You're not alone.